Dear Radiant Leo, you didn't just stumble onto this video. You were called here, pulled by something unseen, something deep within your soul that recognizes when the truth is finally ready to be heard. And I need you to hear me now. Someone has been orchestrating events around you, influencing your mind and your path, and you never even realized it. For the next few minutes, I want you to put everything else aside. Tune into this moment. Because this may be the first time you actually see the game being played around you and the role you've unknowingly been assigned. Have you ever felt like certain things in your life are a little too well-timed? That someone always appears when you're at your most confused, or that opportunities fall into your lap just when you need them, but they somehow come with strings attached? This isn't coincidence, Leo. This is orchestration. And while you've been living, believing you're in control, someone else may have been writing the script. This message isn't meant to make you afraid. It's meant to help you wake up. Because once you see the patterns, you can break them. Once you see the invisible hands, you can stop them. And once you reclaim your decisions, you step into your true power, the kind of power Leo was born to wield. There's a powerful energetic shift happening right now, supported by rare astrological alignments between Uranus and Neptune. These transits aren't random. They are cosmic invitations to clarity designed to pull veiled truths into the light. Secrets are unraveling, Leo. The people you thought you knew, the decisions you thought were yours, even the path you believed you chose, all of it deserves a second look. But listen, this isn't about blaming anyone. Some of these influences may come from people who believe they're helping you. They may love you. But love is not control. And protecting someone isn't the same as guiding them without consent. No matter the intention behind it, you were not made to live by anyone's script but your own. So pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and let yourself arrive fully in this space. Your awareness is expanding. And that, dear Leo, is how every transformation begins. Now let me take a second to express my deepest gratitude. Every like, every comment, every time you share or subscribe, brings you closer to this growing family here at Eternal Mindfulness. Your presence here isn't just appreciated, it's sacred. You help us carry this message forward. And I promise, what you're about to hear in the rest of this video will stir something powerful within you. So please stay with me until the very last moment, because what the universe is revealing to you now could radically shift how you see yourself, your choices, and your freedom. And before we dive in, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your life has been nudged into directions you didn't fully choose, like someone else was behind the curtain? If that question touches something inside you, let me know in the comments. Right, I'm ready to wake up. Because once you see the truth, Leo, there's no going back. And that's when your real story begins. Right now, the cosmic tension between Uranus and Neptune is quietly shaping the landscape of your awareness. Uranus urges sudden liberation, the kind of awakening that comes like lightning and clears the fog. Neptune, however, works differently. It doesn't shout. It whispers through intuition, dreams, and the quiet discomfort that something's off. Together, these planetary forces are dissolving illusions you've lived with for far too long. And perhaps for the first time, you're beginning to notice what was once hidden behind the comfort of familiarity. You may feel an eerie softness around your relationships lately, like something is shifting but you can't quite grasp what. That's not just emotion, that's the energy of subtle truth trying to rise through your chest. And sometimes, the heart knows long before the mind can make sense of it. When we ignore that internal signal, we don't escape discomfort, we simply delay the confrontation. But these transits are not here to punish or shake your world apart. They are here to give you vision. And vision is the first step toward freedom. The cards echo this. The moon asks you to trust what's beneath the surface even if it scares you. The Eight of Swords shows how you've allowed yourself to feel trapped, though the ropes were always looser than you thought. And the Hierophant, when misused, reminds us that structure, tradition, or even emotional dependency can become cages when we forget we're meant to outgrow them. Sometimes people hold us close not to love us, but to keep us small because our light frightens them. Not from cruelty, but from their own fear of change. And yet, the moment you recognize the pattern, that moment becomes sacred. Because in that instant, you're no longer sleepwalking through someone else's plan. You begin to see the story as it really is, not as it was told. And you realize, you don't need to fight, you don't need to run, you just need to see clearly. There is a kind of wisdom that comes only when we stop pretending we don't know. That quiet knowing is more powerful than any confrontation. It doesn't destroy what's false, it simply reveals it, and lets it fall away on its own. Sometimes the people who claim to care the most about your direction are the very ones subtly shaping it. Not through overt pressure, but through emotional leverage, offering support at just the right time, whispering suggestions wrapped in affection, appearing when you feel vulnerable or unsure. It's easy to mistake this for love, for loyalty, for divine alignment. But if you pause for a moment, if you truly listen to the silence behind their words, you may notice an undertone, an invisible thread of expectation guiding your steps, not because it's best for you, but because it aligns with a path they've already chosen for themselves. This is where it becomes complicated. Because when love is intertwined with influence, it rarely looks dangerous. In fact, it feels comforting, and that is what makes it powerful. The Lover's card, in this context, asks us to examine the choices we've made in close relationships. Did we choose them from clarity, or were we drawn in by an unspoken contract we never signed? The Reversed Chariot reminds us that when we give up our inner steering wheel, even with the best intentions, we become passengers in someone else's vehicle. And the Knight of Cups often wears a smile, but not all romantic or emotional gestures are innocent. Some are strategic, especially when timed perfectly to keep you unsure just enough to lean on them. In the way the mind works, when we repeat patterns unconsciously, they begin to feel like truth. But awareness breaks the pattern. When you start to question the timing of certain people's presence, when you ask yourself, why are they always there when I'm on the edge of clarity, you begin to see. And what you see, you can't unsee. This is not about blaming others, nor is it about distrusting love. It's about reclaiming your space to feel, decide, and move without someone else's emotional gravity pulling you back. Just as a tree can only grow upward by releasing old leaves, you, too, must let go of choices that were never fully yours. Stillness is the moment where all answers appear. And from that quiet ground, Leo, you can finally choose your own fire, not because someone guided you to it, but because it was burning inside you all along. You were never meant to play a supporting role in someone else's story, Leo. The moment you were born, the universe handed you a crown not of entitlement, but of radiant self-awareness. That crown isn't made of gold, it's made of choice. And the beauty of true power is that it doesn't demand attention, it simply knows where it stands. But somewhere along the way, perhaps slowly, subtly, you began letting someone else write your lines. Maybe because it felt safer. Maybe because their voice sounded more certain than yours at the time. Maybe because love, when tangled with expectation, can be hard to separate from loyalty. But here's the truth, even if their intentions are loving, the moment you live according to their blueprint, their timing, their definition of success, their fears disguised as guidance, you lose touch with the fire that was born to lead your life. That's not betrayal. That's sleepwalking. And now, Leo, you are beginning to wake up. In the language of cosmic numbers, 1 is the beginning, pure, independent, unshaped by the world. And 8, like the infinity loop, is the power of momentum once you align with your truth. These two energies are calling you now not to fight anyone, but to remember. To remember that joy is not in being needed, it's in being real. That leadership isn't about dominance, it's about the courage to walk your path, even when others don't understand. The colors red, ruby, and gold don't just symbolize boldness, they reflect your essence when it's no longer dimmed by hesitation. White silver speaks to your wisdom, the clarity that comes when you finally stop asking for permission to shine. You don't need a spotlight created by others. You are the flame. And a flame never has to ask if it's allowed to burn. There's a quiet teaching passed down through stillness, that no one can rob you of your freedom, but you can give it away by trying too hard to please. So now, return to your center. Breathe. Rewrite. And ask yourself, if today were a blank page, what would you finally choose to create, not for anyone else, but for you? When control is subtle, disguised as care or convenience, the first step to reclaiming your direction isn't resistance, it's stillness. Because clarity never arrives in the noise of reaction, it blooms in the quiet space where you're willing to listen inward, not outward. And that begins with the body. Your body holds the earliest signs of misalignment, the tight chest when you're being nudged to say yes too quickly, the restless mind when a decision doesn't truly feel like yours. So in this moment, the most powerful action you can take is to pause. Take a breath that reaches all the way down, past the tension, past the story, into your center. From that place, you remember who you are before the world told you who to be. Choose your mornings wisely. Begin the day not with your to-do list, but with your breath. Even 5 minutes of still sitting, or slow stretching in silence, can reset your energy more than any advice from the outside ever could. The choices you're making now need to come from alignment, not urgency. That includes what you say yes to financially. If there's a contract on the table, a deal you're not sure about, or someone gently persuading you to act now, don't. Real opportunities respect your timing. Anything that pressures you to rush isn't truly for your growth. In your work, this is a sacred time to zoom out. Are you walking a path you truly chose, or one you fell into because it was expected, easy, or praised? Stepping back isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Sometimes the wisest thing a lion can do is rest, observe, and wait for its moment rather than chase what doesn't nourish its roar. And in love, remember, someone doing everything for you doesn't mean they're doing it with your freedom in mind. Ask yourself quietly, does this care expand me or contain me? There is a kind of freedom that doesn't come from rebellion, but from deep self-trust. A grounded knowing that says, I choose me. When that truth is steady within you, no manipulation can hold. No subtle pressure can bend you. You stop walking the lines others have drawn and start creating your own. That's not selfishness. That's integrity. And it's the only kind of power that lasts. When you begin to see the patterns that have held you, the subtle scripts, the emotional bargains, the stories whispered into your path, there's a natural urge to break free all at once. But true release rarely comes from resistance. It begins by becoming fully present with what is. As the energy around you shifts, it's not demanding that you react. It's asking you to return. Return to your center. Return to the part of you that can observe without judgment, the quiet space where clarity arises not from analysis, but from presence. That's why in this phase of your journey, the most powerful act isn't force, it's conscious awareness. What you see clearly, you are no longer ruled by. In astrology, Leo is ruled by the sun, a symbol not only of light, but of constancy. The sun doesn't rush, doesn't chase. It simply radiates from its core. And when you remember that about yourself, you stop moving from a place of needing to prove or protect. You begin moving from truth. That's where your real power is. But even the sun needs space to rise. And that's why now, more than ever, it's time to give yourself the internal stillness needed to see whether the path you're on is truly yours, or just the one that's been laid out for you. Not every invitation is a calling. Not every helping hand is harmless. And not every yes leads to freedom. There is an old teaching that says, the moment you pause before reacting, you regain your life. One breath of awareness can interrupt years of conditioning. One choice made from inner stillness can transform your entire direction. And this is that moment for you, Leo. You don't have to rush to change everything. But you do have to be honest about where your choices have come from and whether you are still willing to follow where they lead. Because the moment you choose deliberately, even if quietly, even if slowly, you are no longer under control. You are writing again. And that quiet decision to live awake may be the most courageous thing you've done in a very long time. Leo, you've spent so much of your life trying to shine in ways that others would understand, accept, or celebrate. But what if I told you that your light never needed permission? That it was never meant to be dimmed to fit into someone else's version of who you should be, or what your life should look like? The truth is, your presence alone carries a force that changes rooms, stirs hearts, and shifts energy, not because you try, but because that's simply who you are. And perhaps somewhere along the way, someone noticed that power too, and instead of supporting it, they quietly tried to shape it. Not to hurt you, maybe not even consciously, but because your freedom reminded them of where they hadn't yet stepped into theirs. But now you see. Now you've paused long enough to notice what's real and what's been disguised. And you're no longer asleep in the narrative someone else wrote for you. You are awakening. And awakening is not about rebellion, it's about returning. Returning to the truth that you've always had a choice, even when you forgot. Returning to the fire inside you that never died, even when it was buried beneath doubt, silence, or compromise. So what would happen if you stopped trying to prove anything? If you didn't need to explain your growth, your boundaries, your voice? If you simply lived as the most honest version of yourself, not loud, not defensive, just clear. Who might you become if you allowed your light to burn not for applause, but for alignment? The world doesn't need a louder Leo. It needs a more rooted one. One who knows that power isn't something you perform, it's something you embody. So if your heart has felt that tug, that subtle inner knowing that says, "There's more for me than this," trust it. If you've been sensing the pull to say no when you used to say yes, to pause instead of pleasing, to slow down instead of being led, honor it. That's not selfishness. That's sovereignty. And if something I said in this video touched you, stirred something inside you, or gave voice to a feeling you've carried in silence, I want to hear from you. Tell me below, what part of your story are you ready to reclaim? What truth have you been holding back from speaking out loud? Your words might be the mirror someone else needs. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for showing up not just for this video, but for yourself. Every like, every comment, every time you choose to subscribe to this space, you're helping build a community where light like yours doesn't have to be hidden. You're a part of this journey with us, and I'm deeply grateful. This channel, Eternal Mindfulness, exists because people like you are brave enough to do the inner work and strong enough to carry the wisdom forward. And Leo, I hope you'll stay with me on this path. Because the truth is, this video isn't the end, it's just the doorway. What comes next is yours to shape. The question is no longer, can you do it? It's, will you choose to? You don't need to fight for your worth. You never did. You just have to remember it and live like it's already yours.